I got a full scholarship, but they rejected me just because of my color. They wouldn't let me in the door. Years later, I sent a letter to the owner of that school. I own that building now. My name is Malcolm Reed. I was 17, I grew up in New Jersey. My father was a mechanic. My mother was a nurse. I grew up in a tough neighborhood, in a poor house but with rich dreams. I had one dream, to get into Cavendish College, one of the most prestigious universities in America, and become a software engineer. I graduated from high school as valedictorian. I got a 1590 SAT score out of 1600. I was first in the state in math Olympiads. I applied to Cavendish College. My portfolio, references, and application letter were flawless, and I did it. I got a full scholarship. The day I received the acceptance letter from Cavendish College, it was the happiest day of my life. My mother ironed the letter by hand, framed it, and hung it in the living room. My father came home early from work, sat quietly and looked at the letter for a long time. "My son is out of our neighborhood now," he said. His eyes filled with tears, but he did not cry, because those tears had flowed years ago when he was fired. Now there was only pride. When the day of the interview came, there was almost a ceremonial atmosphere at home. My mother held my ironed shirt in her lap and smoothed my hair with her hands. "Today you represent not only you but all of us," she said. My father washed his old but immaculate car and perfumed the interior. "This car will carry you into the future," he said. When I arrived at the campus, I couldn't believe my eyes. I was in another world with its white columns, historical building, and well-kept garden. At that moment, I said to myself, I will be a part of this world. I approached the gate. The security guard noticed me and frowned slightly. He examined the clothes I was wearing, then looked me in the eyes. I took the invitation letter out of my pocket and handed it to him. He glanced at it, then pointed to the elevator. He said nothing, but his eyes said a lot. "You don't belong here." I went up to the third floor. I headed for the interview room. As I walked down the hallway, I saw the other candidates. White, rich-looking guys wearing expensive shoes with fancy bags. They all looked alike. When they noticed me, they started whispering. Some bumped into my shoulder. Some averted their eyes. Others looked straight ahead and smiled condescendingly. A woman in the waiting room read my name. I walked in. The vice dean was sitting in his office. Gray-haired, in a suit, he lowered his glasses and looked at me. He didn't really look. He thought he was looking. He spoke not to my eyes, but to my skin color. Without even touching my file, he typed something on the computer and spoke. "I think there has been a system error. The acceptance letter sent to you is invalid. We apologize for this." That was all. I was not asked about my grades, or my achievements, or why I was here. The biggest efforts of my life were thrown away in a single sentence. There was no anger in his voice, no regret, no shame, just a cold officer's expression. "Anyway, these things happen sometimes, please understand." These situations? Really, what kind of situations? Poor kids getting into the system by mistake. A black person getting an invitation by mistake. At that moment, time slowed down. My eyes fell on the certificates hanging on the wall. I could see the garden through the window behind the vice dean. The life I had just dreamed of was now on the other side of the glass. I was silent. I didn't say a word. I didn't say a word. I didn't shout. I didn't say I want my rights. I didn't call my mom. I didn't text my dad. I just stood up, said thank you, and left the room. I walked quietly along the corridor. The other candidates were looking at me. Some of them smiled. I heard someone say, "It didn't take long." When I reached the main door of the building, I turned around for the last time. Only one sentence passed through my mind. One day I will return to this building not as a guest, but as an owner. When I walked out the door of that school, no one could understand what I was feeling. I was silent, but in that silence there was a storm. I didn't shout, I didn't cry, but from that moment on, a plan began to work. It was as if I wasn't the one driving the car on the way home. It was not my hands holding the steering wheel, but the determination growing inside me. I didn't tell anyone at home. My mother looked into my eyes but didn't ask any questions. My father sat next to me in silence, and I said only one sentence. "I will not knock on their door. One day they will knock on mine." That night I turned off the light. I thought for hours in the darkness of the room. I didn't sleep as a rejected teenager. I woke up as a reborn one. The next day I applied to a new university, a state university. Smaller, less prestigious, but the one that opened its doors to me. I was accepted. I still had something, my intelligence and hard work. For the first year, I got up at 5 in the morning. I walked to class. I ran to the library during lunch breaks. In the evenings, I worked at a burger restaurant. I stayed up at night writing code. No one was watching me, but I lived every second as if their eyes were on me, because I still had those looks inside me. You don't belong here. In the second year, I was introduced to data science. I attended artificial intelligence classes from the outside. I stayed in the university's computer lab until the lights went out at night. The books I borrowed from the library became my bed pillow. I learned how to code. I failed, I tried again. Sometimes I struggled with a single algorithm for weeks, but I didn't step back, because every line of code was a rung on the ladder to that building. By the 4th grade, I started my own software project, an artificial intelligence platform, a system that analyzes data from universities and predicts academic success. I called it Black Line because I knew that this line was irreversible this time. When I graduated, I had a company, not a diploma. Investors showed interest in my project, but I wasn't thinking about them. I was thinking about a building. The school I was rejected from was now in financial crisis, and the day came. The school needed to upgrade its technology infrastructure. They asked for a proposal. My company, under a different name, made the most comprehensive proposal, not unconditionally. On the contrary, with a very clear condition. One-to-one meetings with the school. Administration will be held to set up the new infrastructure. All software migrations will be carried out by a strategic consultant. So, with me, I didn't show anything. I never said I am that child. I just prepared the files, designed the software, made the presentations. This time, with their approval, I stepped into the system that had turned me away years ago as a mistake, this time as their savior. But the sentence from the first day was still echoing inside me. I will own this building one day. And now that day was very close. Years later, I received an email from the sender, that school. Subject, software infrastructure tender, urgent call request. I smiled when I saw their names, because when they rejected me, they wrote the first line of this email chain. I only sent his reply years later. The day of the interview came. I was wearing a tailored suit, a calm smile on my face. As I walked up the stairs of that building, the sentence that echoed inside me years ago rang in my ears again. I will own this building one day. The door opened. Everyone was ready in the meeting room. The then vice dean was there. He looked at my face, but did not recognize me. Just as he had ignored me years ago, now he thought I was just a businessman. I went to the table and opened the presentation. But between the slides was an image, a childhood photo of me in the suit I was wearing that day when I was rejected. At that moment, silence fell in the hall. The gaze turned to me. I raised my head, looked into their eyes and said, "You said it was a systemic mistake. Today I am correcting that mistake for you." Suddenly, everyone's face fell. The vice dean's hand trembled as he reached for the pen. But my hand was determined. I made him sign the contract. The servers would now use my infrastructure, not theirs. The admission system, the data analysis platform, the scholarship algorithms, it would all be linked to the code I wrote. And the most shocking, the new system assessed prospective students by hiding their identity details. Neither skin color, what a surname, just intelligence and labor. That day, not just their system, I rewrote all their futures. If this story of silent revenge has affected you too, write only one word below: silence. Because real victory sometimes does not shout. It just looks you in the eye and says, "I'm here." Don't forget to like it. And if one day you too are wronged, this channel will always remind you, justice is not expected, it is written. Subscribe, because this channel speaks for the voiceless.